All right, well, very bright, sunny, good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here. It's 9 o'clock a.m. We'll go ahead and call to order today's Flagler County Tourist Development Council meeting. It's April 15, 2026. And again, appreciate everybody being here today. If we could all stand for the pledge to the flag and a moment of silence.
Indivisible.
We take just a brief moment of silence here, specifically to recognize our men and women in the military, especially in today's current action, and our local first responders and their families who await their safe return. All right, thank you very much. All right, we got one big item, just a summary of the agenda. We're going to move through the top pretty quick. We have a lot of work to do on our visioning session, the master plan update and visioning session, so we'll kind of go through real quickly. If I could start off with our roll call, please. Let's start with Mr. Cooley on the right.
Eric Cooley here.
Teresa Pontieri, present.
Andy Dance here.
Pam Walker here.
Lisa Robinson here.
Joe Daskisill here.
All right, and that works out well with Joe being our new board member. So welcome, sir. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your input and your expertise. So thank you. Did you want to say a few words so we all get a little bit of to understand your background? Just speak into the mic there.
Joe Daskisill. I've been with Distinctive Beach Rentals for 11 years now. We bring properties on to do short-term vacation rentals throughout Flagler County.
All right, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Johnny Luzrai, welcome. We just did roll call, so you're now here and acknowledged.
Present.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to consent. If everybody's had an opportunity to read through the consent items, if there's anything that anybody wants to pull to further discuss. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and I'll ask for a motion and a second for consent.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Walker, seconded by Commissioner.
Cooley.
Yep. No, that's all right. Just going through my notes. Thank you, Commissioner Cooley. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Consent carries unanimously.
Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to give the board an update of some good news, breaking news that we received on Friday. There is an update to the revenue report. Obviously, we published before we got the latest numbers, but prior to last Friday, we were down 6%. However, we had a fantastic February where we were up 21%, which then took us to year to date. We're now flat. And the good news is that we're heading into our busiest month, so we hope to continue that trend. And thank you to our local tax collector who helps get those taxes for us. That's all.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, and we'll move to general business. As you see, these are 4 different items, but they're all familiar to us. So, Amy, did you have anything to add to those?
No, if anyone has any questions, we do have a representative from each one of the organizations, but like you said, they all have been continuing clients for us for many years, and we're comfortable and excited to have the events to keep coming back.
Did anybody want to hear from, well, I guess we do have a new member, so if anybody's here from these groups and wants to speak to their items, now's the time. You can come up to the podium. Okay. I think it's good, just we do have a new board member, so, another brief introduction for us.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Walter Ennis. I'm president of Continuing Education Company. And a quick background on who we are. We're a nonprofit accredited medical education organization. We educate doctors who need to keep licensed. So we put on accredited education through online learning as well as in-person learning. We do that through a series of 20 conferences that we do throughout the country. We do 3 of them here in Flagler County. And we've been doing that for quite a few years. I believe this was our 20th year this past spring. Our meetings were last week and the week before. And the TDC has been really great from the very beginning, maybe our first meeting, our second meeting, of helping to support that conference. Now, what we do is, as you guys all know, Flagler County is unique compared to some of the other destinations we go to. We're in the Florida Keys. We're in Hawaii 4 times a year. We'll be going to New Orleans next week. So marketing Flagler County, Palm Coast, and the Flagler Beaches has always been actually the most, I guess, the funnest part of my job when we put on our marketing hats and take off our education hats, because we're getting people interested in an area that in the past many did not know, and we're getting them here, and we're getting them here with their families. So we may have 200, 230 attendees coming to the conference, but they come with their families and extended families. Sometimes they bring friends. So we hold the meeting at Hammock Beach Resort. We typically fill our block, and then we go into overflow. And a lot of the repeat attendees actually go directly to the overflow because they know they've been here, they've seen the resort, but they enjoy the area. So that's in a nutshell what we do. And we really appreciate the funding that we've been getting from the TDC that continues to go strictly into marketing. It allows us to highlight the area more than we highlight some of the other locations that we go to through social media ads, brochures, and we've been actually creating some video content as well based on the area. So, and it's worked for us. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anybody from United Lacrosse or Elite Soccer that wanted to say a few words?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Jamie Wolf. I'm with Florida United Lacrosse, and happy to be partners with you guys. We've been coming to the community for 21 years and holding lacrosse tournaments. We hold 2 really big lacrosse tournaments throughout the year. The biggest one being this summer in June is our Father's Day Invitational. Brings a lot of people to Flagler County and Palm Coast and selling out the hotels and bringing a lot of commerce. So it's great. It's great for the boys and girls. It helps. It's such a big tournament that it helps a lot of travel programs, local programs, programs from around the state, outside of the state, to bring their kids here to play lacrosse. And it's Father's Day weekend. So what a great weekend to have your family together. And then we also have a big tournament in the fall that we do for Veterans Day. So we celebrate our veterans and things like that. So we appreciate working with you guys.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. And Elite Soccer, you guys good? Okay. All right, is there any abstentions that we need to worry about on these 4?
I have to abstain from 1, 3, and 4. I have contracts.
Okay,
And Chairman, I need to abstain from Walter's Continuing Education Company one.
all right, so if it's okay with everybody, we'll group 1, 3, and 4 in a vote, and then we'll do 2 in a vote, so that we can properly acknowledge the abstentions, if that's okay with everybody. And so is there a motion for, if that's okay, is there a motion for 1, 3, and 4, or do you want to do them one at a time? I'll take a motion for 1, 3, and 4, if that's okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Pontieri, seconded by Ms. Walker, and that's on 1, 3, and 4. Is there any public comment on these items? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back and we'll call the question. All those in favor for 1, 3, and 4 signify with aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And we have 1 abstention from Ms. Robinson. Okay, thank you. And then we'll take a motion on item 2, which is the continuing education company.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, same. We have motion from Councilman Pontieri, seconded by Ms. Walker. Any public comment on those? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, and 1 abstention. Okay, thank you, Mr. Baker. All right, great. And that'll move us to item 4B, which is Fund 1109 Capital Project Grant Funding Program. We talked a lot about this last meeting, and here it is back.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just give a brief reminder and overview. As you mentioned at last TDC meeting in April, the City of Flagler Beach did officially withdraw their capital project grant, and there was a desire for the board to bring back the City of Palm Coast to help with lighting of the Indian Trail Sports Complex, which was also an initial applicant when we heard those grants the first time. So we worked with the City of Palm Coast, and they updated their application and information. So the project is for 3 fields, fields number 6 through 8. It is for the lighting of all 3. The total project cost is $714,494. This is a 50-50 reimbursable match. So the total amount of funding requested is $357,247. And so they have representatives here if anyone has any specific questions, but
Okay, great.
I'll leave.
Mr. Hirsch, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay. Any questions on this item? Ms. Pontier, do you have to abstain? Or does she vote?
she abstains.
Okay.
She can participate
Yeah, I was just saying,
and
I
ask
just
questions.
have some comments, and then, yes,
Okay.
I was planning on abstaining. So thank you all for considering this and for being willing to bring it back. This is obviously something that's really important for the city, but also for tourism dollars. Just the Father's Day Invitational alone brings in so much money into the community using these rectangular fields. So I'm really looking forward to being able to provide more availability for the fields, give some of our other fields a rest, because we can now use these fields for longer hours, and just really excited that we can expand in a pretty affordable way too, because I think the cost actually went down, is lower than it came in previously. So thank you all for considering this.
Yes, and what's good about this project is that they will work on it over the summer when the kids are not in school, and it'll be done by the fall. So pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, that was my question. Completion date.
All right, great. All right, so no comments from the city. We're good. Any other questions for Amy or for Mr. Hirsch? All right, with that, is there a motion for
Make a
This
motion
item?
to approve.
Commissioner Cooley and Mr. Lugerai, second? All right, we'll go out to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for a vote. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? And 1 abstention. Thank you. All right, we are now at item 5, which is our presentation. This is the Tourism Sustainability Master Plan Update and Visioning Session with our presenter from Clarity of Place, Mr. David Holder. Good morning, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to join you today. This will be some heavy work, so lots of approvals earlier. Now the real thinking work begins. So if you will, we're going to walk through a little bit of a background on the Destination Master Plan. Amy, I don't know if you want to say a few things to introduce this or kick it off. Is that a no?
Sure. So as you know, we've completed our most recent strategic plan. So we decided to go out for RFP for a new strategic plan, but also then decided, hey, we need to plan probably a much bigger picture, long-term vision. So we said, let's do a 10-year, request that a 3-year strategic plan come out of this product, and with a sustainability piece. So when we went out to RFP, Clarity of Place won the RFP, and David and his team have been meeting with us through Zoom calls every other week. We had the resident survey that went out. He has done numerous stakeholder interviews. We had focus groups. He met with the team. We had a working session. So lots of feedback. And David's here today to kind of share with you a high level of those results and some emerging themes that he's seen so that he can start to develop those strategic goals. He will continue to work with staff on those specifics between now and July, and then come back in July for final board approval and adoption.
Thank you for that. That was better than I would have done. Today, we're going to do a few things. We're going to walk through the process that we've been following and how we're progressing on that process. We're going to talk about some of the concepts that have really started to emerge through this process. And then we really want to get your thoughts on what this means and some input on whether these concepts feel appropriate, they feel right, and start us building the next steps, which is really the recommendations that come out of those and the strategies that accompany that. Again, as Amy indicated, we're at a very conceptual level right now. So none of this is etched in stone. There's still building to be done. We've got a lot of data and a lot of input that's guiding this. It's a good time to review some of that with you, get your input as the Tourist Development Council. I've had the opportunity to speak with a number of you. I have a few of you that I'm still working to line up. My schedule has been a little chaotic, so I appreciate your patience, but we'll get through that as we go. And then we'll wrap up today with a little bit of conversation around what's next, the next steps, because the next couple of months are going to be rolling awfully quickly for us to get everything ready and be back in front of you in July. This master plan is really thinking about a 10 to 15-year range. It's thinking about the strategies we need, the development that we need, the environmental stewardship that we need for this destination, and really what do we need to do to balance that idea of visitor management with visitor marketing. This is really about encouraging overnight stays, which are vital to the efforts of the Tourist Development Council. We follow a 5-step process for this particular planning project, really going in and seeing what the situation looks like right now, determining where there are opportunities, determining where there are tourism impacts happening. Tourism is obviously extremely important to the economy of Flagler County. How do we make certain that we are optimizing that and being able to move forward in a way that's certainly beneficial to our residents, but also encourages the types of visitors that really continue to make us a vibrant economy. We look also at some of the carrying capacities. You are a very outdoor recreation, beach-focused community, and that's a defining mark for this destination, but it also means that there are pressures on those environments that we've got to be sensitive to, and how do we make certain that that's part of the consideration going into this. We've talked with a lot of stakeholders. We've done a lot of surveying for this. That input you're going to get just a glimpse of today, but there's a lot of background for that will become part of the final presentation of this, the final report. But we do want to give you a sense of some of those inputs as we go forward today. And then we're doing a little bit of an assessment of the Eco Discovery Center. This is certainly one of those emerging opportunities for this destination, but it's kind of that next big piece of our analysis before we actually deliver the final plan. More on that later. Oh, let me acknowledge our 2 partners on this. We do have 2 partners that are critical for the work on this. One is Down St. Germain. They're a research firm based here in Florida. They have an enormous track record of determining economic impact, determining visitor profiles, working with different destinations around Florida. So there's a lot of comparable data that they can provide through that process, and they've been working through really assessing what's the economic impact of tourism. So we have that figure for 2024. They're going through the process now of determining what it looked like for 2025. So more on that as we progress through the project. We also are partnered with a land use planning firm that you probably have some really strong relationships with here in Flagler County, and it's Kimley Horn. They also have heavy Florida representation. They've been working with us on determining that environmental carrying capacity and some of the assessments being done around the destination. All right. That brings us to, we're going to fast forward to stakeholder engagement. Many of you were involved with our focus groups and our stakeholders. I believe that was a month ago, but that's been a fast-moving month. But as that was going on, we also had a stakeholder survey in the marketplace. We're really pleased with that stakeholder survey. It touched both residents and businesses, and the results that we've gotten back from that have been really strong. I think we had over 450 responses, so we're pleased with how valid those responses are with where we are. And then the item in red is today. It's our facilitated visioning session with you. So this is where we need that interaction. We need those thoughts, those ideas, those reactions to some of the work that you're about to see. Sound good? Lots of head nods. All right, let's move forward. As we started working through the input that we gathered from our stakeholders here in Flagler County, and stakeholders would be different tourism businesses, different community leaders, different elected officials, one of those key elements that emerged was this notion of balance. And what we looked at with this, and think about that balance mark as being able to shift. So we saw this really in 4 different areas. How do we balance the needs of our residents with the desires of our visitors? And where does that mark need to be? How do we balance the needs of the beach, or beaches, with the other tourism assets that we have throughout this county? And where does that balance need to exist? Heard a lot of mentions of old Florida, that Flagler County still has this feel of old Florida, that is important to the charm and the quaintness of this area. But that has to be balanced with this other thing that we heard over and over again, which was we want growth and we want modernization, but managed. So where does that balance point exist in terms of those 2 dimensions? And then this final area is one that a number of destinations are struggling with, this idea of balancing destination management with destination marketing, knowing that if we aren't marketing our great destination to prospective visitors, we're not going to have them here to manage. But if we aren't managing them, we're not going to have something that is needed to market. So that balance has to exist. One of the pieces that has emerged through this are some tools that we can use to shift those balance points. And the Eco Discovery Center is viewed as being one of those tools. The importance of ecotourism, your trail systems, your kayaking opportunities, all of those different parts is a balance point tool that we can use to help make a difference there. A lot of conversations around westward expansion. How does that factor into the balance that we have between these different factors? Economic development and really diversifying our economy is another one of those points. Storytelling factors in heavily. You have a great story to tell. You've got some great storytellers. How to make certain that the story they're telling is one that is compelling and unique and really creates a differentiation from other markets. And then finally, you have some incredible destination partners, the businesses, the not-for-profit organizations, the different municipalities that are part of this destination. How do we make certain that they are part of where we go and the solutions that we're putting in place? All right, does that sound good so far? All right, let's keep going. I will promise you that you will not have to listen to me much longer. You're going to actually have some input opportunities. Try to really boil down the stakeholder, rather than going through slides and slides of the stakeholder survey results, I wanted to really boil it down to some of the key elements that stood out through this. And a lot of these questions were perceptional questions. They were asking our residents and our tourism businesses about their thoughts on where this tourism economy sits, where it needs to go, where there are opportunities. And one of those key pieces that emerged, and this was a pretty strong item in this, was that there are perceptions that the area is lacking attractions, particularly one of those pieces that's limiting our ability to grow tourism. Both our residents and our businesses, regardless of what category they fell into, they viewed beaches and outdoor recreation as the most important drivers of overnight visits. Tourism is viewed in a very positive framework, and I can't express that enough. 60% of our residents felt like it was positive or very positive. 90% of our businesses felt the same way, so you can see that reliance. So there's a little bit of work to do with the residents, but compared to other beach destinations in Florida, that 60% is pretty darn high. The final piece that we threw up here is that our residents and our businesses really understand and value tourism for producing additional tax revenue for community services. I will tell you, that's rare. It is very rare that our residents understand how important and influential this tourism economy is for generating those community services. It's sometimes just taken for granted. So you've got some residents that really understand how these systems fit together. And we need to make certain that we acknowledge that and show our appreciation for that. I highlighted these two items at the bottom. I'm sure they are no surprise. In terms of concern areas, traffic congestion, parking, and beach access, those were combined together, were pronounced as concerns. I have not worked in a destination yet where traffic congestion and parking wasn't a number one issue. However, the idea of parking and beach access, those being combined together, that certainly is one of those elements we need to keep an eye on with our future here in Flagler County. We're not going to do much with perceptions around traffic congestion. It's always going to be there. We also asked some questions around investments. So what would these survey participants want to see in terms of future tourism investments, thinking about how do we distribute tourism tax dollars? Again, just the wisdom in these responses, I was a little surprised by this. The number one item they wanted to see was protecting the natural environment. There's real respect for your natural environment here in Flagler County. It's one of those things, you're going to see this over and over again through this process. It's one of those differentiators that makes you such a special destination. Second in that was beaches and coastal areas. We did go, this is only a glimpse at this survey. We did ask some specific questions around what would you want to see in terms of some of those investments for these areas. We have some insights on how that stacks up together, but I wanted to throw this up there because I think this is an important starting point for where we go. And it's not to say, you see sports at 42%. There's a lot of I don't knows in that sports piece. There's just uncertainty of, do we need to invest tourism dollars in this? Do we have enough sports facilities? The answer is probably no. We need more, but there's definitely some education that's needed around our residents to make certain they understand why are we making these investments, why are tourism dollars important for this, and where do we go next in terms of some of those needs. Any questions so far? Right.
Doing good.
So let's get into what do we do with all of this? And in the past, your strategic plan is focused on pillars. Right now, we're just using them as categories, but they will lead to the pillars. that we used to start establishing some of the strategy. And we saw really 5 areas emerge from this. Your current strategic plan has 4 areas that stand out as opportunities. This destination master plan is going to focus on 5. We may adjust that as we take those next steps, particularly if we have some good input today. The first area, and I say the first area, these are not in any particular order, but it's destination brand refinement. And that's really thinking about that brand. Second area is destination business development, ensuring that we have some overnight stays that are driving the tourism economy. Destination and community alignment, visitor and resident engagement, and then structural deployment, which is really looking at our Flagler County Tourism Office and making certain they have the tools that they need to move things forward and help to implement a lot of this work. All right, let's jump into each of these. We're going to spend a little bit of time on each of these separately, and this is where we're going to get some real input from each of you on your thoughts on this. So one of the key emerging concepts is this idea of destination brand refinement. I put up there, our firm, we are not brand developers, but we do spend a lot of time with destinations thinking about the importance of branding. And this is not an exercise in logo creation. This is not an exercise in slogans and catchy themes. This is not what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is really looking at what's the promise, the essence, the soul of what we offer as a destination. That to me says more about a brand than just some catchy line or some visually appealing graphic. It's how do we capture the soul of this place and have that soul inserted into the mind of a prospective visitor or a resident. What we saw with this destination is that our beaches really help define Flagler County. Everyone we talked to, stakeholder survey showed this, the importance of beaches is dramatic. But the access of our outdoor recreation opportunities and those amenities of the natural outdoor environment really adds to that and helps us differentiate Flagler County from our competitors that are out there. We're stuck in between 2 fast-growing, very different destinations. But that works to our advantage if we really think about it from a brand promise standpoint. So the combination of beaches and natural outdoors seems to form a compelling and competitive brand promise. So this first concept is really about taking that next step with branding to completely separate ourselves from other destinations in Florida, certainly other destinations on the Florida East Coast, and really pronounce ourselves as this incredible beach and outdoor recreation environment. All right, it's your turn. Love to hear what this concept means to you, and also what you feel is needed to begin to position this concept as part of this plan. This is the interactive piece. It's your turn to talk. I love it.
So as a TDC member, Flagler County, and we need park out in the Monday. Had all kinds of stuff. It was on the dirt road. Us as the county or the city can start like promoting those parks because we used it as a place for an event, right? And I'm sure it's other types of things. When I was little, I lived in a place and we went to Linville Orchards every year, and we used the country to make the money for the county, you know, as well. We didn't have a beach, you have to go to Atlantic City, but we used the stuff in the country and taught the kids. And I think that maybe we can't make the residents out there do stuff, But for the things that we can control, that the county, you know, mandates or oversees, maybe we can come up with some kind of something over there and make it popular so that, we can start using the rest of the county. And that's just a thought that just kept running through my mind ever since we had the survey and the interaction, is to use the whole county. While we use the beaches and we love them, there's other things in the county that we can use as well, is what I was thinking on that part.
Yeah.
And as a resident, like I said, yeah, I love all the things. I don't know that much about, I think we're funny about, we want to be known for something, but we don't really want everybody running around here, because privacy is a big thing too. So we just want you to get your event to get in and get out as a resident, you know. But then I would like, as a resident still, I would like to see, since we have this beautiful country and land here, I would like to see a little more things in the parks for the nature, like aimed at kids or something.
Ms. Walker.
As me? Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Sorry. In working in international tourism, I see over-tourism on the top of everybody's mind. So I think we need to promote what we have here, the trails, Princess Place, some of the other places aside from the beach. We need to make an emphasis on what we have here that promotes non-over-tourism, because we do have those assets. And I think we need to make a strong point. People go to Patagonia all the time to get away from the crowds, to go hiking and biking, you know, but we have that too. And I think we need to make a strong point of our assets that we have. Like Lisa said, we have so much going on. And I think there's a new sports complex going on out in Western County that's projected. But I think also that we need to promote that as well, to let people know that we are not like Miami Beach or New York or the places where the hordes are going and just overcrowding everything.
Very good.
So I'll jump in because that's immediately where my mind went as well. I think of our location as somewhere that people go to slow down and get away from the hustle and bustle of what they have to do in their normal everyday lives, being, you know, employees, workers, parents, whatever it is that they have to do from that 8 to 5 or sometimes longer every day. This is where they come to slow down and get away from all of that. I've been encouraged by the amount of festivals that I've seen from our community in the last few years. I feel like not only has the amount increased, but the participation has increased, both from vendors in this county and outside of this county, as well as people who have come to visit. I don't know if you all are familiar, I grew up right outside of Charleston, South Carolina in Summerville, and there's this huge festival called the Flower Town Festival every year. And it basically just takes over, and downtown Summerville is very quaint, very tiny, but it takes over the downtown area, and people come from all over the Southeast to this. It's a craft festival, that's all it is, but it's very popular, and I feel like we can do that here. We just have to start promoting those things, to your point, and using some of the assets we have, like Princess Place Preserve, even Waterfront Park, really capitalizing on things that are naturally already here that so many other locations don't have. So I think of our brand as a kind of slowing down brand. Come here, relax, enjoy the beauty, be active. That's something that people are very into, is they don't want to go on vacation to necessarily drink and eat themselves into comas. They want to be active. And so I think capitalizing on that is really important as our Flagler County brand.
Others? Join in.
So I think when we did the last strategic plan, that was pre-COVID, I believe. Yeah. And one of the big things that came out of that was the ecotourism initiative. And it never really seemed to gain traction. We didn't see that reflected in real life. In real life, folks came to Flagler County to visit the beaches. And it didn't really change any behavior, and I don't know if it really, the people coming here, I don't know if it really latched on. Not that it's not a good initiative. I think it definitely needs pursued, because you get into, concepts of like the over-tourism or carrying capacity. I don't think that the beaches have an over-tourism problem. I think there's a problem of balance between our local in-county residents and tourism all utilizing one asset. And the in-county resident volume far outweighs tourism. So over-tourism of our beaches, I don't think is really an issue. It's a matter of balancing that versus the volume of folks that are coming to the beach in general, figuring that out. I know that the destination, which is Flagler Beach, is looking at a lot of ways of balancing, we'll call it congestion and traffic and just access to the beaches. There's going to be a heavy focus the next 10 years of, car reduction, multimodal, shifting that mix, cutting down on the drive to the beach and just park at the beach concept. And so it's just, I think it's important to keep in mind what the destination itself plans on doing in addressing that. I think ecotourism is a big play. I just don't know. We did a heavy piece of the last strategic plan in ecotourism and didn't get much out of it. Utilizing the rest of the county is good, but I think we need to stay realistic on how much that's going to change. Protecting the destination itself, and this applies to all county, we have the issue of the beach itself and maintaining it. And I think that it would be amiss to not put something in there about just, we saw in the last slide, protecting the environment as the top priority. And I think that needs to be kept in mind when we're building a strategic plan on protecting the number one asset the county has as far as tourism. However that may be, you have to protect what people are coming here for.
Touch on the ecotourism aspect of it. I feel like that was a great initiative. What seems to be a pain point is a lack of amenities that go with that. It's very hard to take a group of kids to one of our parks unless you're packing a lunch. Like if there was more partnerships, more things for the kids and the families and the people that are visiting to do once they get to a park. You go to these theme parks like Universal Studios, you got massive attractions and you have food and you have retail and you have everything. And on the flip side, with the eco side of it, I mean, it's beautiful to go walk in nature, but then you get hungry. And then, a lot of the companies, or it's usually the cities that are running these shops and the food aspects of it, and they don't really do the best job for the most part. And as a resident, I don't typically go to a lot of our parks too, because it's a big ordeal to drag everyone there and then unpack, and then you don't really have everything there, and then you have to go somewhere else, which I feel like a little bit more balance will help with that. And then on the nightlife side of things, what I hear is, hey, Flagler Beach specifically, or a lot of areas, you shut down at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So the residents really don't have much to do. The tourists don't really have much to do. And even though we are a sleepy beach town, Flagler Beach specifically, I feel like the county in general, everything just shuts down. And it's not really conducive, especially for the youth. There's no real active engagement. So what do? They house party and they do a lot of different things that we probably don't want them to do. And it's just like, how do we find something in more of the busier sections, the 100 corridors, the Palm Coast Parkway corridors, or even in the Bunnell areas? What can we do that's strategic that maybe other counties have done that have been successful with? But, the biggest gaps I've seen are those.
David, I've lived in Flagler County since 1988. And I got to see with ITT and working at the Sheraton and raise family here. And I wouldn't raise them anywhere else. I love it. And so for me, some of the biggest things, kind of with Johnny a little bit, but I always heard, we just don't have a true downtown area in Palm Coast. We kind of spread out. ITT's master plan and the way it's built out. And some days I feel in my mind like town center area will become that maybe with that. And I love seeing that. But it seems like fitness is such a big deal with some of the younger generation, and they want that. And I know our girls are 20 to 25, and so like they want to drive to Jacksonville to try a new sushi place they saw on TikTok or something like that. And I'm like, why are you driving an hour away? You can just come right here. Or Walter will tell you where to go to eat some good sushi. But so it's just funny to me. I'm like, just stay in Flagler County. But on the flip side of that, they love walking the bridge, the trail systems, and they love that. And they'll come back and say, here's a picture of the turtle we saw, and different things like that. And I love that. And so, I'm not like a environmentalist where you like, hey, I'm the last one to build on the beach, so I don't want anybody else here. I got mine. I don't want you. I don't need anybody else. But I'd like to keep it safe, because that's something we hear. At the resort side, we want Johnny to come and park his car and never leave. We want you to just stay, at the resort. So we try to offer a lot of things for families to do. But there's so much in Flagler County that I feel like we can offer people. Like for me, I enjoy fishing. So for me, I like the intercoastal and the lakes, the fish, that I love more than anything. It's so peaceful and quiet. And so we had Florida Outdoor Writers Association come to the resort. And so they wrote a lot about it. And so I think some of the other avenues to promote are, like Johnny said, they're great, but I think, the beach is so key. But the other areas are just like little add-ons that we can have for people. So if something's going to appeal to everybody that comes, and is it enough to sustain and each one. But from a resort standpoint too, I'd like to see something that's going to fill some down peak times. So that would be older residents, some disposable income that can come in August through December type thing. Because, we've been blessed last month with great leisure and group business. And so that's awesome. But December, January, sometimes if we could close, we would close, because it's like, man, oh man, it's, yeah. And so it's one thing that I'd like to see that, but I just don't think some of the outer tourism areas are enough to sustain themselves. Like the beach, anybody that comes and visits us, that's the first thing they want to do. Hey, when we're going to the beach. And so I was thinking about it when everybody was talking, like anybody that comes from South Carolina, from back home to visit, that's the number one thing they want to do when we're going to the beach. And so in my mind, that's kind of how I judge it, is what they want to do, yeah.
I just want to say one other thing. We're far from over-tourism here right now. Traveling the world like I do and getting to know all the tourism assets, over-tourism is like Miami Beach, where you can't find 2 feet with the open sand. We're blessed with these beaches here, and we're blessed with the hiking trails. So like you said, there are plenty of places to go to the beach and find space to enjoy our beaches, and also go down the trails. I mean, this county is blessed, and we just have to promote the blessings that we have with the hiking trails and the biking. I live off Colbert Road, and I travel down there all the time, and there's always people running, there's always people biking, there's biking trails, it's always not crowded, but it's always being used, and we just need to exploit the rest of the county to do the same thing.
If I may, just from sorry, go ahead.
So I think it boils down to, if you're gonna go into the next 10 years, like what is Flagler County gonna be known for? It's a question that I have to answer on my AI survey for Hilton, and it's known for right now the beaches. So that's what it's known for. If you want to add things for young people in a downtown and bars and staying open after 10 o'clock and all of that, the residents really don't want that. And I've been here since 2008. I'm gonna tell you they don't want it. I was here when I was 21. I'm gonna tell you they don't want it. So they would never agree to anything like that. So it's not gonna be a downtown per se like everybody else, and that's the uniqueness in it. So that's where we have to use the other things, because we don't want it all overcrowded, and we don't want a certain element here, because the people that live here, we still want it comfortable and quote unquote safe for us. So we wouldn't really get those things. Like, young people understand they can either stay here or they can go when they get 18. I can tell you now, my daughter didn't want to live here. I tell this story all the time. She went to where the younger people are, and that's fine. You know, it's fine. It's okay, because we have to still maintain the integrity of the county and the cities that the stories that we tell about being here. So we still have to keep that, and the reasons that we're here. You know, any one of us, I came initially from Pennsylvania, but I came from Jacksonville. At any time, I can go back and live in the big city if I choose to, but I choose not to. So we have to remember that we have to think about the residents too. And like I said before, use the stuff that we have. Pretty much everything is gonna go on the beach. We're gonna you know, inundate them, but we still would like to look at some other things. Like Ms. Pontieri said, we want to look at use the things that we have. Like, so we have these other parks and all these other things that we can use, not just the same ones, to incorporate some new ideas here and still keep it safe and family friendly.
So on the economic development piece, I'm going to push back on you just a little bit on one side of it, because I think we in Palm Coast struggle with something very, very difficult, which I've continued to term as an identity crisis. We have a severe identity crisis in the city of Palm Coast, because we've got one group of people, a very large group, who do agree. It was designed to be a retirement community. We want to keep it that way. We want to keep things slow and laid back, and we don't really want to grow. We want to put a force field up and nobody else can come here, and that's it. And then we've got another group of people who say, I want my kids to go to college and come back. I don't want them to go away. I don't want them to go to Orlando. I don't want them to go to South Florida. So we do need to find things that are entertainment, a good entertainment quality. Now, does that mean we need to turn into Church Street in Orlando tomorrow? Absolutely not. That will never work here. But doing things like we have the promenade coming out of the ground in Town Center, and starting to really make Town Center that walkable entertainment type district that we've had visualized for 25 plus years, is finally starting to come to fruition. But that took economic incentive dollars that we infused our budget with. It takes those types of initiatives. So I think, I can see us getting there, but coming to kind of a scaled back version of this downtown area that we've all been kind of waiting on. So I think when we're looking at the future, we have to kind of, dip our toes into that, what type of nightlife is acceptable to the residents without going overboard, and finding that happy medium. But I do think it will be necessary if we do want to keep a workforce here, and we want kids to come back after they're done going to school, which I know is very important to a lot of parents.
Very good.
Hey, just one comment. Have you guys seen I guess, for all the national parks, have you seen their new branding or marketing that they're doing?
Yes.
It's unbelievably different than anything I've ever seen, and it's getting such a massive influx of people that are interested now in our national parks, all using some music that most people probably wouldn't be listening to, or at least my demographic probably listen to for the most part. But it is such a unique thing, seeing all the responses, and it's really wakening up a lot more people to go to the national parks, all because it's not so cookie cutter, not so, because when you go to a national park, it's supposed to be, everything's very in order, but now it's like, hey, no, we're a national, like, come enjoy this place and be free. And I just thought that was interesting, that if you haven't seen it.
Johnny, it's working so well that most of the national parks now, the big ones in particular, you have to take out a ticket and a time slot and pay. You've always had to pay to get in, but now you have to reserve a time slot on all the big parks. So I don't think we want to go there. Sorry.
That was interesting.
I'll just, I mean, I don't know, other than I think where tourism has been pushing are the areas that I keep coming back to. I mean, people come to Flagler because they don't want to go to Daytona or the northern counties because we're different. And we have to, you know, the brand is just that we're different. We have the only place you can drive the natural coastline. And it's, so we're kind of the we're the slower, quiet part of the East Coast. And I do think as we continue to promote the natural areas and our trails, you know, another 3,800 acres that we just preserved on the west side, somehow tying the different, connecting those different natural areas into a campaign, if you will, because they're all unique and different, and people need to be going to, you know, and accessing all of them to see the different parts of the county's beauty. So
Perfect.
that's all I got.
This is good. So my concern was that it was going to be hard to get input from you. That concern has been thrown out the window at this point. Now my concern is that we finished on time. So this was hugely valuable, and your input is so constructive for helping us make that next step. So I want to leap forward. The brand concept was really how do we etch our destination in the minds of prospective consumers. This next piece is how do we convert some of those consumers into actual buyers? And one of the key elements that we've seen produce that for Flagler County has been sports. Sports tourism is largely seen as recession-proof, crisis-proof. Even through COVID, it was the first marketplace to come back because parents want those kids doing sports, and that investment, doesn't matter what else we have to put off, that investment is going to be made. But it is highly, highly competitive and has grown more competitive since COVID just because of the realization from all destinations that sports is a demand driver. Investments in sports venues increases our ability as a county to compete. It forms partnerships, you know, and I think this county is one of those great examples of partnerships between the county, the city, to make those sports facilities come to life. It provides not just a tourism development opportunity, it also provides opportunities for our residents. And you can kind of see that even in the pickleball courts that are in Palm Coast. The investments in maintaining those facilities, the quality of those facilities, pursuing new venue development, and really targeting those events. You know, you created funding for some of those events today, or authorized funding for some of those events today. It's part of that future continued success. So sports development is really about driving overnight stays in a very concerted, intentional manner. We're just doing it under the headline of destination business development. So let's talk for a few minutes about what this concept means. This is a little different than the brand piece, but they're not totally disconnected. That brand is still going to be important in this, but we've got to make certain that we're driving overnight stays, and sports development is a portion of that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to me. Okay, I'm first. Well, since I had to abstain from 3 things that have to do with sports, I'll be the expert here. Having had the pleasure of watching it grow here, you had some of the people talk about the last 18 to 20 years or whatever. I mean, just watching the Father's Day lacrosse grow has been amazing, and it was recession-proof. And what we get from a lot of the teams and the people that are booking is we don't have enough fields. They don't want to go to Jacksonville. They don't want to go here. They want to stay right here. So we hear that every time because my blocks will sell out quick, and I ain't got no more rooms. And Hilton, nobody has, all my other GM friends, we don't have any more rooms, and they would like to have more rooms and have more competitions and maybe have other days. They want other fields to play on, like the fields to be packed. That happens every event. So we know we host 4 of them for sure, right? We start off with Winter Elite and then the Father's Day Lacrosse, the 2 soccer invitationals in the summer, and then we've had to split that. If you look, it got so big we had to separate the boys from the girls about 4 years ago. Boys from the girls, and that was right after COVID. And then we do pumpkin shootout and Veterans Day lacrosse, and they're always calling. All the agents are calling because they have to play somewhere else. Either our field is booked or we just don't have any more rooms. So we definitely want to have some more fields and stuff because those parents have enjoyed coming here. They've come here through generations of kids. The little girl might have been a baby, now she's playing. Came with the brothers and sisters, like they're coming. They love it here. So we definitely have to make sure that we invest in that and keep that as a second thing we're known for. First thing is the beach, next is the fields.
I mean, sports to me is one of the biggest drivers or impacts, especially for the restaurants, right? And anytime there is an event weekend, you see it's one of the #1 drivers. What seems to happen is we never really get the funding for more fields, or we never really get the funding as counties or cities for even more hotels, because that's what's needed. We need more rooms and more fields. And it doesn't really seem like all the cities and counties tend to work together for that. There's usually some people that don't understand the concept of the sports tourism, and there's a lot of education that goes away with the residents. But yeah, no, I see sports as one of the biggest drivers or impacts, and it's just how do we educate the residents, say, hey, this is needed. But when we do have those big events or tournaments, then the residents also don't like that all the restaurants are booked, and it's just that double-edged sword. It's like we can't have our cake and eat it too. If we don't want any other industry, well, then we need sports, right? And it's how do we get the county commissioners and city commissioners and everyone to see that, and maybe that's where you can come in.
And what I got is to do the sports angle is good, and if you're pushing messaging out, that's good to keep it going. But there's a concern about, do you push out a strong message for an emerging market when you don't have the carrying capacity? I think part of this 10-year strategic plan would really need, instead of focusing on messaging, really needs to focus on building the infrastructure to have that. You look at what comes first, chicken or the egg. Do we push a strong sports tourism message when we don't have the capacity, or do we shift tactics into the strategic plan of building the capacity first before you start leaning on the message? Because the feedback I get from citizens now is everything's maxed out, and the locals are also getting pushed out of the fields because of the events. So there's concerns there. So I would just worry about how it gets approached.
Great observations.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that because we struggle big time with balancing tournaments, events, and local need. And the good thing about our community is that there are a lot of local people who are willing to donate time and energy and their own monies to these initiatives, both locally and for tournaments. So we definitely have a lot of vested individuals in our community and organizations. it seems that everybody recognizes the concept as a strength, but nobody's really willing to invest in it. So it's almost like we're all talking about it, but we're not really moving on it. I mean, I had to fight tooth and nail for $600,000 from our general fund to redo our fields at Ralph Carter Park. It's just one example, because we were not able to utilize Ralph Carter Park for 6 months, and that's just not acceptable. So I think the messaging needs to come from more than just me and in the city and some of our staff members. It has to be a messaging thing. I agree, from TDC and maybe working even stronger with the county and the other municipalities to say we collectively recognize the importance of this initiative, and we are going to talk about a plan to actually invest in this. And really quickly, the other issue I see is that we've all been kind of waiting on the westward expansion to provide the sports complex. The truth of the matter is, if that comes to fruition, it's still a far way off. And the possibility that we lose opportunities to other facilities, municipalities, or counties in that meantime, because we're waiting on that, is a real risk. And I don't think it's one that we want to take. So I almost feel like there needs to be hey, what's our contingency here? How do we make this work and flourish, even if that is either doesn't happen or doesn't happen for maybe 5, 10, or 15 years? Because that's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of money that has to happen before we actually see that come to fruition. So I think kind of shifting gears a little bit and thinking about other ways to make this happen is really important.
I have a question. I thought, and Amy can speak to this, I thought in a couple meetings ago that we were presented with the fact that they are building that sports complex out west of here. And is it a definite or is it not?
Well, it's not in the CIP. So we looked at capital improvement plan for the next 5 years yesterday, actually, and it's not there. We don't have, we have impact fees in Park and Rec, but not nearly enough. I brought this up during the city council meeting yesterday. The westward expansion has some developer obligations that the developer has taken off the table, including to build the sports complex with fields and an Olympic-sized pool.
Yeah, because I definitely think it is needed.
It is needed, absolutely, and I've been fighting for it. I would appreciate a stronger army behind me in that regard.
Well, let me make one further comment. Again, in international and domestic tourism in particular, sports, there's a new brand. You have travel agencies all over the place, and you have consortiums all over the place, but now there's a huge, huge sports consortium, if you will, that is promoting these student teams and student groups that are coming to our playing fields all over the United States, and they're putting big money behind promoting these events, which is why we have so much competition going on between all the cities. So if we want to compete, we're going to have to build that place west of here.
Well, and it's an anchor piece, right?
Yeah.
If we can make that happen, it will be an anchor for hotels,
Yeah,
restaurants,
absolutely.
the other economic development projects from a tourism standpoint. I think everybody's heard about, it's been termed Project Magellan. But without the sports complex, those things likely don't happen. And if they do, it takes a lot longer to get there. So again, educating ourselves on what is supposed to actually happen out there and putting pressure on the individuals that can actually help that come to fruition is exponentially important in this moment.
We need to promote that same theory to the residents of our county.
Yeah.
Because they need to understand why it's needed, because it's an immense amount of tourism infrastructure dollars that'll come to help, so.
How far out is your CIP? Is it 5 years?
We have a 5 and a 10-year. Yesterday we did the 5-year. I don't think the 10-year is supposed to come to us for probably at least a few more months. And I candidly don't remember if it's in the 10-year at this point.
I have a question. So in the 5-year, not to get off into a political thing, but just asking, so in the 5 years, since it's not there, is there any more parks that need improvement? Because you were talking about Ralph Carter, which I know is very big. We had some discussion about Indian Trails. We use Wadsworth. Like, I feel like maybe if we could like maybe generate with some of the people doing the tournaments, some extra tournaments. We shouldn't, like, we're so popular, we shouldn't just have to depend on a holiday. Like, why are we doing, you know what I mean? Father's Day, Veterans Day. Like, if we could do even other small ones, and our facilities that we have now, are up to par and up to standard, that could break some of it. You know, is it anybody? I don't know. Tell me. If it's anybody I need to talk to, I'll talk to them. I'm willing to help because I love hosting these tournaments. So
I think so I went down to Port Orange and I went down to Ormond, and I kind of talked to some folks down there to see what they're doing. And they're leveraging, I believe, and this is something we'd have to talk maybe to Ms. Moore about, but I think they're leveraging their school fields a little bit better than we are right now. And I don't think it's any fault of our schools. I don't feel the conversation has really been fleshed out at this point. And I say that because if we can maybe leverage our school fields for smaller events, let the bigger events happen at some of the actual sports complexes, and look at all of the assets collectively. I just don't think that very robust conversation has been had. So maybe this is kind of that initiative that we need to maybe create. You know, we've had joint boards for other things before, but in all the joint boards that I've seen and been a part of, the school district has kind of been left out. And I feel that, like at the city-county board, for instance, we have a municipality board, school board's not a part of that. So, you know, maybe this obviously, it probably does kind of venture off a little bit here, but getting staff to kind of look into how can we inventory our assets and make sure we're utilizing them in the best way possible.
Forgetting the Indian Trails Complex, which is the poster child for that type of coordination. It's just those things have to align. So it does there because of the adjacency of Indian Trails and the park itself, and the ability to expand, and the restrooms that were built. So in the right situation, I think there's an appetite for that.
This is hugely valuable. Your talk on alignment gives us a good segue to the next conversation. We use this one to really capture some of these development needs and look for areas where there can be alignment between what does the community need, but also what do we need for destination success. So destination community alignment. I'm going to skip to the second bullet there because there is a component of this that does look at that western expansion and understands that that's really an opportunity, an unmatched opportunity for thinking about these quality of life assets and their role in tourism development, tourism success. So Teresa, to your point there, it gives us a way to align some of this with supportive messaging, supportive efforts to really push some of that forward, but under this notion of community alignment. And you're exactly right, it's gonna take some real advocacy from a lot of different voices. Alongside that, arts and culture was identified in your previous strategic plan. There's been some efforts there. There's still a lot that's needed to really elevate that level of our community. So one of the pieces that's recommended, not recommended, that's the wrong word. One of the pieces that's conceptualized as part of this is to really put some focus to understand and grow those assets, because it's not necessarily something that's driving tourism demand right now. It does provide a nice quality of life amenity. And then finally, one of those elements that really makes a place special are those locally owned food and beverage offerings. You've got some real opportunities here. You've got some great players that are doing business in this area. It is part of that charm and allure of Flagler County, is that locally owned operator for food and beverage. So that's, how do we encourage more of that? How do we make certain that we're supportive of those operations that are here already? You know the next part of this. Thoughts, insights, perspectives on this notion of community alignment. Think of this as kind of a catch-all. but really focused on how do we support our local businesses and how do we support those those hard investments that are needed throughout our community.
I'll speak up first this time, if you don't mind. One of the major things that I notice is that people here are always going to the St. Augustine Amphitheater because they have great shows that come in there, and we don't have such a venue such as the amphitheater here in Flagler County. It would be a good thing if somebody would develop one. Right now, we have the high school, and we have a lot of what I call, there's a lot of good things that come, but there's also a lot of old people shows and what do they call it? They're copy shows, or they're not the actual performers. The
Cover.
Thank you, thank you. But we need to step it up, and also the same thing with the restaurants. Every day we have people going to restaurants in Ormond and St. Augustine because, no offense, there are good restaurants here by local people, but we need some upscale restaurants, and I told you that when we were meeting. We don't have any decent restaurants that the general population can go to. The Hammock Beach Resort has some lovely restaurants inside, but if you don't stay there, you can't go. So we need some decent restaurants. We need here upscale restaurants with tablecloths and nice concept. And I think we lack that because people are going elsewhere to find those things. We have enough pizza restaurants. We have enough fried fish restaurants. We have enough Italian restaurants. So it's time to move on to higher quality amenities in Flagler County.
Sushi side coming soon.
Sushi's good too.
But I think
Is yours on?
Am I on?
There you go.
We already talked about how young people don't stay here, so it's not that they wouldn't want to come here. We have to make the place attractive so that the business owner is going to have employees.
Well, maybe if we built those, they'd stay.
They were, where they going to live?
I don't know.
This is what I'm saying. So we have this economic thing that stops some of that, and that has to be addressed first. They're going to St. Augustine. They're going because they have people that work there and they can afford to live there. So, and they have a younger crowd that's going to work. Johnny can speak on employees as far as in that area. I can tell you that's probably the main reason why. It's been plenty of nice restaurants here for the 17, 18 years that I've lived here, but they haven't been able to sustain because they can't keep employees when inflation keeps changing, and young people, old people are not going to run around carrying no daggone trays trying to serve nobody. They just are not going to do it. So we need the youth, and we need them to have a place that's affordable to stay so that they will work these jobs. So that's the first thing. So you can invite anybody here that wants to have an upscale restaurant, but you're gonna have to give them a staff. There you go.
I mean, I can definitely attest to that. One of the biggest problems that we have is a severe lack of professionals in the industry. You have owner-operators that are there, but when my brother and I were contemplating on a third location, more of an upscale, something that we know is needed, it is how are you going to staff them? I went to a recruiting trip in Miami, try to find some of those people that want to be in the industry, and it's very difficult because of exactly what you just said. We don't have the infrastructure that will sustain that. We want all the restaurants or real estate agents. We don't really have the industry that supports anything else because it's a retirement community, but we're really not a retirement community. That's one of the biggest things that I'm trying to help push too. Like there has to be a little bit more of a balance, but we have a county commission that really doesn't want any other kind of industry, or certain people do, but then the other ones maybe don't. It's always a cat and mouse kind of game. And how do we fix that?
Yeah, I think messaging, again, is so important because we have, on the city council, we did get pushback in dedicating over $1 million in economic development incentives. But that was specifically for the promenade, particularly when we're looking at things, and again, Johnny, a grease trap. A grease trap for a restaurant is incredibly expensive. So little things like that to help restaurants come in, being able to afford that initial ground up infrastructure, helping the owner of that building with those economic development incentives to lease out those spaces so that we can look at getting more upscale establishments in there. So I think, imparting on the residents to kind of battle what you're talking about, Johnny, as far as the Flagler County Commission kind of giving pushback, a lot of it is because of the residents. The residents are pushing back, and they're representatives of the residents, so it's fair. But that messaging is so important. We have to get ahead of that in a better way to explain to people how important it is that we continue on with these strategies to get those types of things into our community.
Mr. Cooley.
I think one of the things that is going to need to be looked at as far as building this 10-year strategic plan is when you look at destination and community alignment, concerning the destination itself, there's not much alignment right now as far as, the destination and the community. You have a lot of different players in the mix here. You have, for instance, Palm Coast, which is the majority of the population, which is users of the destination. You have Flagler County, which has the majority of the funding for the destination. And then you have Flagler Beach, which has the majority of the control of the destination. And those three factors don't agree on the usage of the destination itself. And that's been going on since the last strategic plan. So I think tourism is going to have to, in a way, develop some tactics to interject themselves into this conversation to bridge the gap. Because if, we have, there's, and that just, it's multi-layered. It's going to be hard to build some tactics, but tourism is like what this county relies on. And just getting a baseline on that between the destination and the community seems to be a challenge. But that's something that everybody's going to have to address in the 10-year strategic plan, because if not, in this next 10 years, you're going to have an issue with the carrying capacity of the destinations between the local users and tourism, and it's going to conflict. There's only so much parking, so much access to these beaches, and unless that's expanded, our locals are going to directly conflict with our tourists, and it's going to hurt the tourism industry here if the tourists can't get to the beaches because it's flooded with. Just that we have a huge population coming that's already in the pipeline of approvals.
Joe, pipe in anytime. Okay.
All right. Chair, is there any other questions on that one? Any other thoughts?
Anybody else? No, thank you.
All right, I will jump forward because that notion of residents and visitors is really, really important.
You
And it's
teed that up
hard.
really good, Eric.
Yeah, it's it's not easy. So one of those areas we feel like can be helpful in that is the Eco Discovery Center. And we feel like it's an opportunity, a rare opportunity to inspire, educate, and service both our residents and our visitors. It's not just a visitor center, it's a gathering point. The center has to provide some level of activation, programming, interpretation, promotion, even events to make certain the message is compelling, that stays relevant. Our Eco Discovery Center isn't the only outlet that we need to consider for this level of resident education. It is a non-stop process, but it is one that we've got to be very intentional about with this destination master plan. There will be the need beyond that center for more locally owned and operated visitor amenities. I discussed earlier, one of the aspects of this was looking at our economic impact from tourism. And it's clear tourism is a thriving part of your local economy. But there is very clear evidence of leakage going into the counties beyond us. Our visitors and our residents are spending their hard-earned dollars in restaurants and retail operations outside of Flagler County. How do we become more intentional, knowing that we've got constraints on workforce and other issues? How do we become more intentional about making certain we're providing some of those visitor amenities? Because right now we're just allowing that to go to other places. And chains help, but much of those dollars go out of the county also. So how do we make certain we've got some local operations as part of that? So with this resident and visitor engagement is really how do we help to educate both of these parties on the importance of the tourism economy, their role in supporting the tourism economy, and where that tourism economy needs to and can go next. You've seen this slide before. What are your thoughts on this one? And let me just pause right here. I'm really, really impressed with your take on this. I'm impressed with your thoughtfulness, your consideration. It's like you have been operating as a tourist development council for a number of years. I'm just joking with that. You're giving really good input on this, and it's greatly appreciated. Who wants to start this time? I'm looking at this end of the table.
Actually, I forgot the question. Can you go back?
Just want to get a thought in terms of resident and visitor engagement. How do we need to embrace that within the destination master plan? How do we put these pieces together? How do we make certain we're leveraging the Eco Discovery Center? How do we help to push for more locally owned and operated visitor amenities? You know, we talked earlier about the need for more access to our ecotourism opportunities, our outdoor recreation opportunities. A big portion of that comes down to concessionaires. We don't have enough concessionaires to service our visitor market here. So what does that look like as we go forward?
I think that's a tough one. There's definitely a mix of people. You either have people that live here that don't want no one else to come here and visit, and then you also have the flip side to where, you know, you genuinely enjoy other people. Since COVID, there was this lopsided virtue of like, we hate everybody. Then after COVID, now it's like, hey, we should be able to warm embrace each other as a community. We're definitely getting better. I think one of the biggest events that we ever had was right at the Flagler Beach Museum, Amy, if you remember, that was it tacos, turtles, and it was a really great event to where we got the locals out. It wasn't geared to anyone else but our locals to really, hey, this is what we do. And I think the Ecotourism Center, once it's up, right, once it is built or as it gets closer, once they see it, I think they're going to understand more. And the messaging building up to that is same thing what we've all been trying to do is educate our locals on what we're trying to do and why we're doing it. We're not just trying to bring people here to spend money. It's a little bit different than that. We want you to come here and enjoy what we have and, you know, eventually move here, right? But targeting those people that we want to move here. And that was one of the caveats I was going to say for sports. Usually it's a different type of family or that's more of a target market that we're looking to bring here. Because when you bring an entire family, you're bringing, you know, not only you bring in workers, right, with kids and stuff that are coming up through the system. You're bringing that whole dynamic of volunteers as well and just, you know, families. That's what we're looking for, not just retirees.
Yeah, so if you want to have visitor and resident engagement, I think we're going to have to put in some tactics that involve a shared message amongst the government bodies. Like an example, so we have a lot of parks here, right? We've been looking at ecotourism, but the parks are not designed for tourism. They're designed for locals when you look at what the amenities are. If you're designing a park for more tourism related, you got to change the design a little bit. You know, these parks are designed for just people driving 15 minutes that are going to stay for a couple hours and leave. That's not really a tourism play there. And the governments have to decide on a shared message. If we're going to have sports, then all the different governments are going to have to decide that they're actually going to build something for sports versus just have a few fields that people are going to battle over. And I think shared messaging and a shared vision's going to have to be in here, because when you have these municipalities moving in different directions, everything from ecotourism to sports to destination development, they all get muddled, and none of them really carry a strong message. And I think that's why you have the bleed, is folks come here for a little bit of the ecotourism, but there's no assets there to really retain it. Same with sports. They'll come here for the event, but then they're going to go elsewhere, when it comes time to do the recreation part of it. So just having a stronger shared message amongst the government bodies.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Because I think it's such a valid observation. Are there systems in place right now, or meetings in place right now on an annual, quarterly, monthly basis between the municipalities to come together and to talk about some of these capital needs and how they fit together?
There's a quarterly meeting, or really it's as needed. Commissioner Dance is real heavy in it. The multi-municipality meetings, it's minimum quarterly.
Okay.
And where folks meet. Tourism has normally not been a subject for that, but that's what originally started those meetings, was balancing folks with the beach and the visitors and the population growth. That's how it started, was to address some of that.
Good opportunity then, okay.
And I'm going to push back a little bit on Commissioner Cooley's discussion about the parks. I don't think the parks are intended to be the draw that equals bed nights. I mean, the parks and those natural amenities are what will keep people coming back. I think somebody mentioned it, that they'll do a sports venue. They'll come and use our fields for the sports venue, but it's these other amenities that the families go to and take advantage of, and brings them back. So we rebook, based on those other natural amenities, because that's where the families are going to go on off times or to fill gaps. So yeah, we're not building theme parks, natural theme parks out of our natural areas. That's not. Now the Eco Discovery Center has a chance to be the game changer, and that was your previous slide, bringing the tourists and the community together. That's the place where both will come to be able to take advantage, I think, of the rest of our community's amenities, and be able to share and spread the tourism dollars more countywide. So yeah, I think it's a big ask for Eco Discovery, but I think it's set up that way, and is in the great location to be able to do that. So I think the parks serve both purposes. One is the destination for our residents, but also that escape for the tourists that are here as well. They come to the beach, right? Only so much you can beach it. So where else are you going to go when you want something else to do in the community?
Can I make a comment here? I'm hearing all these wonderful aspirations to bring the visitor and the residents together and everything like that. But like Johnny and Lisa said, where are we going to get the employees to do all this? I know there's a data center moving in. I asked Andy, Mr. Dance, sorry. I put you in the vice president's place. But anyway, I asked him this morning how many employees that's going to bring, but I think until we bring more industry here, unfortunately, that a lot of residents don't want, we're going to be lacking the employees, the people to work and bring in young people to go to schools and to utilize everything. But we need to up the industrial base of this county, which many residents don't want. But I mean, I don't know how else to bridge the employment problems that you all seem to be having.
Okay, I'll lead in. So what I think, the question was, how do we merge the visitors and or the residents to understand what we're trying to accomplish? And I think that we need to, in the interim, there needs to be like some type of gathering or something that we all can sit up here as the TDC and the commissioners, and something for the, I don't know, at the town center park or some daggone where we can actually have an event to actually speak to these residents, because these new residents have no idea what we do. They don't know what we stand for. They don't know what we want. They don't know anything. They don't even know that they can watch this on TV. It's all the older people that I see in Walmart and say they tell me they saw me on TV. So they don't know what we do. So they don't know what we want for the future. And maybe if they understood it a little more, they would stop resisting, at 2:00 in the afternoon in a secret meeting somewhere. They would stop resisting that. Maybe we would get more play for the young people or whatever, if they understood how important it was, the dollars, and them not fighting everything that we do. So if we could have some events that we host somewhere and invite everybody and do all this talking there so that they understand, just like when we do chamber parties and this and that and the third, so that they understand, and maybe something outside so it don't cost us that much money, and give them a hot dog and a hamburger and start talking about these things that we have on here, they would understand.
Where are you going to get all the people to maintain and give out all those hot dogs and hamburgers?
It will be us up here. We'll give them out.
I grill hot dogs.
I mean, it benefits us, so.
I've heard a lot today, and I think the main thing is what Commissioner Cooley said is all three agencies have to work together, because until that is solved, if all three entities are going different directions, we're not going to do a better job for Flagler County. So the key thing is we all need to agree on what direction we want to take this county, because until that happens, if we're all focused on our separate little entities, we're not going to succeed. We talked about employees, we talked about a number of different agencies and different ways of building the tourism. But if we're not focused on the common goal, we're not going to succeed here if all three entities are moving in different directions. So I really feel like we all need to get together and focus on where we want to take us in 5 to 10 years and focus on building that and striving, because until that happens, we're not going to be successful.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the infrastructure for that is in place. Boards like this, obviously, that's one of our purposes. Boards like the Joint County City Board, I think we just have to lean into it more and take actual initiatives and to-dos back to our respective organizations and make sure we're putting into, into workability and into actual plans what we talk about in meetings like this. I also think it's a communication problem. What I feel from our residents is that they want the visitors here, they want the tourism dollars, but they don't want to feel it. So they want them here, but they don't want to know they're here. And that doesn't work. So, but that's also a communication issue. In other words, if you're having a huge tournament at Indian Trails, but you don't communicate to the residents that that's probably going to be a hot spot for traffic for the next 2 days, they're going to get irritated, right? I know one of the initiatives that I really pushed for was a Palm Coast app, so that we can better communicate to the residents the way that residents want to be communicated to, and that's in the palm of their hands. So that's still in its infancy stages, but at the very least, it has a calendar, so we got that. So there are things that are kind of crawling into place, but that's why I think things like this, when we're coming up with these types of master plans, we really need to all wrap our arms around it and commit to putting it into practice.
You can tell when the group is good because you start reaching into the next set of questions before they're even asked. And I want to spend a little bit of time on priorities and making certain that this next step that we're going to follow matches up to your vision. And what I've heard loud and clear today is that regardless of what our vision is as a Tourist Development Council, we need to make certain that vision is also shared by our residents, that our residents become supportive of the direction we're going in, but also it reaches into not just the county, but each of those municipalities within the county, including the unincorporated areas, to make certain that we're in as much alignment as we can be. Never likely to be 100%, but it is one of those areas where we can begin to work through that. I hear that as one of the clear priorities that needs to come out of this. Are there some others that you feel like are needed in that? I also heard this notion of investments in our facilities as that next piece, the importance of the beach as part of that next part. How do we make certain we're embracing some of this? And then the challenges associated with operating any kind of local business nowadays with the workforce accessibility that we have. It's not just a Flagler County issue, that's a nationwide issue. Am I right in hearing some of those priorities, and what other items do you feel like are high priority that we need to make certain live at the top of this for getting things done?
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Cooley.
I think when I look at the second bullet, concepts, clear priorities that need direct attention, I hate bringing it up because it's political, but it needs said. The county, and when I say the county, I mean all the municipalities in the county collectively have to decide what they want to do with the beach. So Flagler County has been in a, we'll call it like a informational rut, where they have not figured out, do they want to maintain, enhance, or let the beach just kind of decline or just be au natural. This has been going on for years, a long time, but that has a direct effect on all of these tactics that we're talking about. You know, if as an entire county, it's decided that we don't want to invest in the beach and we're going to just let it be, then that shifts tourism tactics to other things. So there, you know, if you look at some priorities that need attention, it's we as an entire county have to decide what are we going to do with the destination and how is it going to be taken care of? Because that will affect tourism, it will affect all the tactics. Unfortunately, it's a highly political thing, but it does need talked about if we're going to build a strategic plan.
Yeah, I think to the top high level answer is we need a plan. We need a focused vision, right? And it needs to be something that everybody is on board with collectively, at least in large part. For me, the conflict with the beach, what I see and what I hear, is a recognition that the beach is important, but a recognition at the same time that we need to put focus in other amenities as well, because throwing money at the beach is necessary, but throwing money at other things other than the beach is also necessary in order to help relieve some of the pressures on the beach, right? So it's what order do you do that in? What is your, hey, this has to happen next year, in 3 years, in 5 years, and in 10 years in order to kind of find this balance. So, and I agree, there's obviously a political climate surrounding it as well, but also I think that can be alleviated if it's properly communicated to the residents what the overall plan is. Because people can get behind something they understand. If they don't understand, let's just keep throwing sand and money at the beach, of course they're going to push back against it. If people don't understand, hey, my kid can't go play football because there's not enough fields, but we're throwing money at the beach, they can't get behind that. So it's what are we going to do to alleviate all of these issues? How are we communicating that? And what are the expectations of those results that we see? What's the timeline that we can expect them in? And once that expectation is put before residents and we can talk amongst each other about it and talk to them about it, there's I think a lot higher likelihood that people can get behind it. And I think at that point, you may see the political climate behind those things rest a little bit because people understand it.
Yeah, and that is, those discussions is what drives the tactics for tourism. You know, if your municipalities are reinvesting in football fields, then we need to have tactics around that. And, you know, if you're investing in beach, there needs to be tactics around that. So that, that drives that 10-year, where you're going with it.
Absolutely.
And I think what we're seeing with the discussion that Commissioner Cooley's brought up is that because it's politics, it can change in an election. And so the concept has to be bigger than so that doesn't happen. And I think that's where the discussion has to go, because it's once everybody buys in, I mean,
You
it's
can't
like
change it
it's
in
like
a year.
ESL. I mean, we do that. It operates, behind the scenes almost as environmentally sensitive lands because the voters have supported it 3 times, and so that's the discussion: is how do we get that type of infrastructure established so that it doesn't change when an election brings new people in.
It also seems like one of those things we need to consider as we are moving this plan forward is making it as apolitical as possible. So let's, we know that Flagler County tourism is going to be a heavy component of the implementation of this plan. But as soon as it's assigned to an organization or a department, it becomes a little bit more of a lightning rod. So making certain that we're showing that this is a comprehensive plan beyond just one department that operates within this county is going to be an important piece of that. All of us know it doesn't get implemented without the work of the team at Flagler County Tourism. It doesn't get implemented without the oversight and input of the Tourist Development Council. It doesn't get implemented without participation from the municipalities and the businesses and those different partners. But I'm hearing loud and clear, let's make certain we're showing this as a vision for the future. We're making it apolitical. We're focusing on what the needs are and where the opportunities are.
Yeah, so let me ask you guys this then, because I think about the Parks Master Plan, Commissioner Dance, that we did. We did that jointly, obviously, between the city and the county, and it was data-driven. And we have, matter of fact, we did it this last meeting. We've used that master plan as kind of a base or justification for our next initiative and what we're going to put capital improvement dollars towards. And it's a little harder to push back against that when it's already been a plan that's kind of been adopted and accepted by both the county and the city. So this is obviously my first go around with I think it's first year being on TDC. Is this something, once this master plan is kind of arrived at, is this something that we take back to our boards and get their feedback, and then bring that back here to talk about it, to make sure that that input is considered before something is officially adopted? And then that way, regardless of what the political climate is on those individual boards for the next 5, 10 years, whatever it may be, you can always lean back on the fact that you have this document that all boards had ample opportunity to contribute towards, and that this was arrived at based on a board of individuals who specialize in this area in different ways.
So part of the individual one-on-one phone call stakeholders, David did speak to all the city managers. So we kind of look at that person as the representation speaking for the board, more or less on a high level, but also each elected from the municipalities, from the tourism space. You all are here, you three, representing your board. But also there's the opportunity from an individual, someone wanted to speak just privately to David, an elected, they also had that opportunity, and of course take the survey as a resident or as a commissioner. I think that when the plan is adopted, then through the Board of County Commissioners ultimately, then we go and share the results with the municipality boards in the form of a presentation, but the input time is now. I'm not sure I don't think we've ever done it where we've had this type of session with each municipality, though. So there is opportunity for input in those phone call interviews that he's done already. But we are hearing from the cities that way.
So process-wise, is there kind of a draft plan that is presented before? Okay.
Yes, the easy answer there is yes. We'll show a little bit about what that looks like as one of the next pieces, but the success we've seen in other destinations is they live by that plan. There's a recognition that this is not a strategic plan. We're going to accomplish this in 3 years. There are elements of this that are very long-term, may not even be accomplished within that 10-year cycle. But being able to note that this was in, the same way that you've done with your strategic plan. There's been a lot of conversation today about referencing that strategic plan that was pre-COVID. That's a powerful document. This becomes even more so ensuring that we have that item that we can go back and say, our vision is dictated by this plan. This plan has been developed with input from across the community, not just our business community, but our residents as well. And there's an element of that that allows us and necessitates that we go back and continually communicate that as part of that. So I see that I'm sorry, I'm stepping away from the mic. I see that as an opportunity for those next steps. That first year of having a master plan is a lot of presentations, a lot of communication on this is what the plan says, this is what went into creation of the plan, here are the priorities. We need help in implementing it. And unfortunately, a lot of that will fall onto Amy's shoulders. Oh, shall we keep going? Mm-hmm. All right, let's do it. Oh, we're almost there. The finish line is in sight. We're almost there. I want to spend a little bit of time on compatibility, and this may actually connect back to your earlier question. And it's really thinking about what you need as Tourist Development Council members and any members that come after you. Does this change your role as the Tourist Development Council? Do you see that that this master plan helps you do this job in a little different fashion? And are there tools that you expressly need to continue that? Are there some informational items, research items, documentation that you want to make certain that you have at your fingertips to really make some of these arguments and communication efforts take hold?
I really feel like it's just communication tools. I mean, if there's any data-backed, the best way to drive any concept, or especially to elected officials, say, hey, we have X amount of people that are saying this. Because the biggest thing I see is this: most people that come to the meetings are usually the same group of people always, and I feel like the commissioners, elected officials, always get the same minuscule purview of what the residents truly need. And there's a lot of surveys that go out there, but for the most part, most of those really active or growing families or residents that don't have time to go to the meetings, whether they're working or not, it's a lot. And a lot of the meetings are very long. So to try to stay updated and informed is very, very difficult. And there's no real cliff notes that you can get. You get Flagler Live or you get Palm Coast Observer. And unfortunately, they're very different perspectives a lot of times. So I know as a resident, it's very, very difficult to understand what's really happening. And maybe if there was another form of news source that could be put out by the municipalities that are very fact-driven, which I know Flagler Beach has done a much better job than they have in the past. Hey, this is what's going on in our town. This is where we're at. These are the events that are going on. But unfortunately, we still lack the real feedback that's data-driven. Even the surveys, we have 100 and some thousand people in the county, and we got 450 back. Like, what is that? That's not even 1% of what's really what's really going on and what people really want in the county. So how do you fix that?
Yeah, I think just low-hanging fruit, if we can have the backup data that went into, that would be great. Yeah, data, I think an ongoing update, and I know Amy is working, I think we discussed during the last meeting on a new service we're going to be utilizing for more data, but making that available to the residents. I don't know if a dashboard of some sort can be created where people can go and, you know, have quick tools to see, even for business owners or deciding whether or not a business wants to come here. I know those things are important to them, those data points. So when we talk about attracting businesses, particularly in the tourism sector, having that data at their fingertips could be helpful. So I agree. I think the more information, the better. But at the very least, when we do meetings like this, all data that went into presentations like this, I think are super important, because even though people may not be here, a lot of people do watch them. I've gotten text messages while I've been sitting up here for people that are listening, and they do go back and re-listen. So I think that's important as well.
Great.
I want to at least comment on the success is the makeup of our board, and I do think really impressed with how, especially with Joe's addition too, how we've got a really wide coverage of the different tourism aspects here, the different governments that are here, and active participation as such, not just here filling up a seat, but, you know, we're all contributing. In other areas, you know, the only other thing I can think of is taking advantage of our joint meetings to better focus on tourism and where we can coalesce around ideas, and maybe even bringing back specific tourism topics to each individual government's workshop, a specific discussion on tourism that each of the boards then gets to talk specific about tourism. And I know we do an annual public-facing meeting, but maybe community-focused more than just. I mean, that one is wide-ranging, and we get a lot of press. So different public outreach. I don't know the community part, and maybe that, again, that's going to be the benefit of the Eco Discovery Center. I think is one of the the pulls that we use from that location when it's built. But just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Draw on that excitement.
I'd just like to say that whatever effort we do, and it would be really good to have maybe an update with that quarterly meeting that Eric mentioned, where you all meet, all the municipalities meet, to put out a little blurb, maybe on Facebook, maybe an email, but probably Facebook. Keep it short and sweet, because I get the things from Palm Coast, from the city of Palm Coast all the time, but they're way too long. And people don't read anymore, believe me. I write for an article, I write a monthly article on paper in Atlanta, and I'm limited to 350 words, and even that is too long these days.
Headlines is all they read.
Right. But, you know, if we can put out something to the general public that says what this board is doing, how we are getting together as municipalities, but keep it short and sweet. I refer back to, I think his name is Ronnie Ward. He's posting all this stuff that's going on in Flagler County, and he keeps it very visual. Visual, what's going on, he speaks, and it's over in less than a minute. He's got 30 seconds or something, and it's like to the point, and you get it, you go on. If we could do something like that, it'd be really dynamite to let the residents and let everyone know what's happening here in our county.
David, I think, Amy, was it Shelley that sent out the thing to all the residents on what the TDC does, or what is something like an educational piece she sent out, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, and she also sent out the survey for us to make sure all the lodgers had it. But yeah, about once a year, she does do outreach of education.
Yeah, and I just think, David, if the people know, like, sometimes I wonder, like, do we assign the money properly? Like, we've been given authority to handle those funds the right way, and some days I think, man, that's a lot of money that we have to use, and other days after hearing all the needs, I'm like, man, we don't have enough money. There's more buckets to put it into, but some days I think about it like, last couple of years or money that we've given, did it help? Did it serve its purpose on there? Yeah.
All right. Once again, you have leaped forward with your questions. And the viability of this plan does come down to money. It does come down to resources. And I asked the question of whether Flagler County Tourism has the funding, the staffing, the structural resources it needs to be effective, to implement this. Again, we're still under construction here, but we are going to be leaning on this operation to move things forward, at least to help to move things forward. From the TDC standpoint, are we positioned the right way to ensure a level of success? And I ask that question from your insights, not to bind you into a piece, but really to get a conversation going on. How do we need to think about making certain we're positioned for implementation and for success?
I think just get the message out like we're doing. I think that's most important.
I feel like we also have a new county administrator that's going to be coming in, and maybe we're able to kind of ride that tail and get them informed and involved with everything that we've been speaking about today, the alignment of the cities and the counties and what we're trying to do. I mean, it all comes back to the same thing. We need the infrastructure to continue to, fix all our problems, but at the end of the day, it's what problems we want to fix first. And Eric Cooley mentioned it first about the beach. I mean, we still don't have a beach management plan, and it is our number one asset, and it's very political, and we just keep kicking the can down the road, and that's probably the first thing that I'd want to target with that county administrator.
I think we've got everything in, you can always use more funding. So I think, right, but that's, we won't get that until we start expanding our facilities, more hotels, other things. And just for clarification, and not to nitpick Mr. Lujrai, we have a plan. We haven't agreed on how to fund it. So the management plan is in place. It goes back to the funding part. And Commissioner Cooley's earlier comments about that talked specifically to that as well. So I'm, kudos to our staff, our leadership in tourism for the work that they do, for laying the groundwork for getting something like the Eco Discovery Center in the works. And those are forward-looking concepts that will help us. But I do, I go back, I think this meeting more than others as I listen to Commissioner Cooley, and I think all of us have to wear his shoes for a moment to think about what the beach's position is, the city specifically, because it's, especially as we focus on tourism and bringing people in, it is affecting the operations within the city government itself and what they can effectively do to handle the tourists or increasing tourism. So I think the original intent, Commissioner Cooley's idea of bringing the governments together was to work together to help the city out, because we're all contributing. Our residents, no matter where they're living, are going to the beach in addition to the residents. And I think we got to get back to that focus of the original intent and try and help out. We've gotten a little, I think, sidetracked on some other issues and need to revisit that.
There again, getting the message out brings in the tourism dollars and the tourism tax, so that'll help the funding.
So when I look at that first bullet, does county tourism have the funding? And I think this is something that's also going to have to drive the tactics. To answer that question is not really. This particular tourism office does not have the budget that a lot of neighboring counties do have, by a long shot. This tourism department is, there's not enough dollars coming in. And so that changes what in this 10-year plan they're going to be able to do. They're not going to be able to do anything even close to what Duval or St. John's do, or even Volusia. Their budgets are completely different. So that's going to have to be worked into this plan for the next 10 years, because there's not going to be a big money shift in the next 10 years. To Commissioner Dance, what you were talking about is, you're absolutely right. The biggest thing is we are going through a very large population growth in county. And what that does is that leads to a lot of day trips to the destination. And if you have to, and I hate doing this, but because you have quality of life for residents, and then you have economic viability. And if you got to pick a body to be on the beach, the destination is going to lean towards the tourists, because that's your money spend. The day trippers are bringing a cooler, and then they're leaving, and they're going back home. And there's no economic incentive there. So the multi-municipality meeting started with, encouraging the concept of encouraging in-county residents to use what Commissioner Sullivan used to call the 6 hidden beaches. And that's all the other assets. And that frees up what we kind of call the destination for your tourism industry to grow. And then you get the money spend, and you can capture those dollars. At the other areas of the county, there's nowhere to spend any money. So it just makes sense to put the people that want to spend money in the area that they can. And then the folks that don't want to spend the money, we want to put them in the areas that have nowhere to spend that money. And right now, it's kind of upside down as far as a practical thing. But that's how those meetings started. And I think revisiting that, or just kind of exploring other tactics around that, would help out the tourism industry, which is very much, I don't want to say underfunded, but they're limited compared to a lot of other counties.
Call it competitively challenged.
There you go.
So again, it's based on the amount of people that come here. So it's underfunded because the people don't come here. So what is everybody going to do to get everybody to come here? Because we don't have no problem with investing in the destination if people are coming to the destination. So that's the question. What is everybody going to do to get people to come here? So I know I do my part, and I'm going to raise my hand and say I do. But what else can other people do? Because even if you have people coming here, and I'm going to speak about it in my minutes, right? While we were way better in the quarter, people are not spending the amount of money that they spent last year or the year before. Even last year, which was the hardest year, so they're spending less money, so that's less tax dollars that we'll be collecting, because they did not spend the high-end post-COVID fake money. They spent reality money and, cost of life living money, and they still supported these events. So we have to take that in consideration too, it's the people coming here, and it goes back to what it's known for, and it goes back to marketing all of it for you to get the tourism dollars, because they have to know and want to come here. And I went to the beach. I've been to the beach. It's been packed. I ain't seen it empty one day. But it's what type of money are they spending?
All right, let me jump forward. And the last element of the Destination Master Plan, at least the concepts going into it so far, is really looking at our key implementing office, which is Flagler County Tourism, and thinking about their role as a convener in this operation. Perhaps that's a key point of this, but really we need to understand, is that realistic or not? There are very transformational opportunities taking place, some things that will drive overnight business that really increase our capacity and our competitiveness. And some of those are associated with the Eco Discovery Center, some of those are associated with sports development, some of those are associated with really taking a step back and really understanding the role of the beach communities. But the key comes down to that visibility, and we've got to make certain that we are doing what we can to elevate the visibility of this tourism effort, this tourism office, and how it shows that the residents are supported by tourism direction, tourism investment, tourism spending. So those pieces are still coming together. My last question to you, from what you've seen so far today, and knowing that this is not the destination master plan, it's the concepts that have emerged from much of what we've heard and seen and observed so far, what have we missed? And you can say nothing.
You don't get off that easy. No, I think in this, I could be wrong, I don't know, because I haven't seen the data that went into this, but I think making sure that we're getting enough input from all sectors of the community, all of our different economic development stakeholders, different residents, making sure that it spans, and it's hard, you can't make people take a survey, right? But are we getting a wide array of all of those demographics? And if we're not, what can we do to get them more engaged in the future? Because the one thing that I agree with you, there's the same people that seem to engage every single time. And while I appreciate that engagement, we need more. We need to make sure that it's widespread. So I don't know if we accomplished that or not. I'll certainly look at everything that's sent to us as the backup, but 450 responses is still insufficient. And again, it's not, I don't believe it's your fault or Amy's fault. I think it's just the nature of some of the challenges that we have. Even the Parks Master Plan, what do we get, like 1,000 input, Commissioner Dance? I think it was like 900 people responded to that survey. And we put that thing out so much. So I would say that's the biggest challenge when we're trying to really get a pulse on the community without the community really responding and engaging.
Are you done taking input in that regard?
We are for now. We'll talk and revisit whether we want to open that back up, but my preference would be, yes, we're done.
Okay.
But
I'm just saying
we're-
this
we're
meeting will
happy to-
probably get some additional coverage in local media. And so whether you wanted to open it back up or not, there's an opportunity there.
I would say let us regroup on that and see what the realities look like. And again, it is no challenge to open that back up. If we get 20 more responses, then okay. If we get 200 more responses, that's really helpful. But we're open to we're definitely open to idea of opening it up if we need to. But I'd want to regroup with Amy to see what that looks like reality-wise, timeline-wise.
Yes, and if I could just take a moment to, I'll drill down to what those stakeholder groupings look like. So David had one-on-one with all the county commissioners. We had focus groups that had all lodgers in the room. Obviously, the TDC members had their one-on-ones. Then we had, what group was this? Okay, so for phone interviews, he spoke to the assistant manager of the city of Palm Coast, the Bunnell city manager. He spoke to a lot of the sports organizers. He spoke to Walter with continuing education. He spoke to the Parks and Rec department in Palm Coast, the president of Friends of A1A, the economic development managers for both the city and the county, event organizers with Flagler Broadcasting, Touchpoint, the chamber, members from the IDA, the CRA director, the airport. Then he had another group of just sports, restaurant and retail. So we had a lot of the outfitters, like electric bike rentals, the Boney Booties Beach Rental. Say that 3 times. A lot of the retail shops over in Flagler Beach. Arts and culture and history groups, organizations, they all showed up. Attractions and parks, so we had representatives from the state parks, our Florida Sea grant agent, Equestrian Adventures, those outfitters, the bicycle shops, water adventures, fishing outfitters, the IFAS extension, Marine Land and Ripple Effect, Eco Tours, he was there. So just to give you an idea of, we really did try to touch on all those groups. And we also did the survey. We did put money into boosting it on social media. We know the survey was a little long. I think when David was first sharing some of the results, I was like, how come it's really heavy answers in the beginning and then it started tapered off? So the thought was that people just tapped out. And so this is getting too long. But we can talk about opening it up, but I don't know if we'll get the results that will move the needle. But I think you said we were like the second largest. Yes, if you want to share.
Well done, yeah. And I'll say two pieces on this. So one of the things that always stands out when we do this type of work is there's never enough time for listening. There's always voices that you want to come to the table, want to participate in surveys and those type of things, and they just don't. But what comes out of that is that opening to continue that effort. This type of engagement should not just be done when it's time to plan. It should be done as we go along to make certain we're staying fresh, we're staying current, we're staying mindful of the needs that the community, that our businesses, our organizations need. So to your point, Commissioner, I think there's an opportunity to ensure that we progress along and continue to do this good work, not us doing it, but you. This opens the door to many more opportunities for communications, and we've already really talked through one of those key opportunities, I think, with this level of engagement and where that goes next. All right, I will wrap this up, allow you to do the other parts of your agenda. First of all, thank you for this input today. This is really helpful. It's going to allow us to go back, have some real clear insights on shaping some of these next pieces. The recommendations become a lot more clear when we have good information going in there and we start to see some of the ways that they need to be shaped. To that end, we are still working through some of the assessments associated with the Eco Discovery Center. That's one of the next pieces that's coming out of this process. And then this last piece, the one to your right, is really about putting together the plan in a way that allows you to go out and be as successful as possible with implementation. All of this conversation around the planning process is great, but it doesn't matter if we can't implement it. So implementation is the most important aspect of planning. We can't just build a plan. We've got to make certain the plan is constructed in a way that you can take it forward and you can focus on implementation. We are going to be heavy on strategies. We will provide some thoughts on tactics, but you need a destination master plan to not be focused on a to-do list. It needs to be focused on a where do we go list, and those are strategic elements. So much of our time and energy with the plan is going to be strategic level, but we also recognize it's great to have big strategic concepts, but if we don't have a good starting point on how to move those forward, and that's where tactics come in, it won't move forward. So we will focus on making certain you have some entry-level elements in terms of tactics and action plans to make things happen. We'll also be very clear with the assignments. Sometimes it will be Flagler County Tourism's effort to lead an initiative or to partner on initiatives, but other times the organization aspect of this may be focused on support. And then in so many cases, there are elements of this that we're just going to monitor. We don't have control of those. A good example would be the current economy, the level of inflation. We don't control that at all, but we certainly need to monitor it and understand how that impacts what our visitors are going to spend while they're here. With that, I thank you again for your time today. Thank you for any viewers that we had as part of this. You have my email there. Please, if you have some additional ideas, make certain you reach out to me. I know I owe a couple of you follow-up phone calls or phone calls to get your thoughts a little deeper. Now that you've got some insights on this, I think we can really take that conversation a different way. But I'm looking forward to those conversations taking place. But I am very grateful for this project. This has been a really interesting destination and one that we take a lot of pride in working on and working together alongside you. So thank you very much for this.
Well, thank you. Thank you to our team up here too. You didn't have to pull many answers out of us. We were freely willing to share with you. So thank you to our team up here on the dais, and thank you for helping us through that process. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to our last item, which is our tourism office update. So back over to Ms. Amy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick things. Usually at the end of the meeting, Angie and Courtney give their quarterly marketing report, but for today's session, we eliminated that, but the backup is part of your packet. But I did want to highlight a couple things really quickly. We co-hosted with Visit Florida in January a fam trip with a blogger, influencer. She is called the Trusted Travel Girl, and she stayed at the Compass Hotel in January, and she highlighted that new hotel, Flagler Beach, Ohana. We sent her to Next Door Beach Bistro, Oceanside, Washington Oaks, and she also participated with Equestrian Adventures of Florida. Also, some good news, the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association. In January, they presented their what's called the Adrian Awards, and we won an award for in partnership with our agency Aqua Marketing. We won in the consumer brand campaign category for our Trails, Tides, and Laid Back Vibes. So congratulations to the marketing team for that. Also, we are moving along with our new website vendor and getting everything kind of starting to transition over. They're working with the county IT, our existing website vendor, to complete all the changes in information architecture. And so we have a timeline of the end of the year for a new website launch, and it has a lot of new features and capabilities that we're excited about, specifically like neighborhoods, so we can call out the hammock and highlight them and make it interactive, and itineraries. So we're looking forward to that. Also, let's see. National Travel and Tourism Week. It's May 3rd through 9th. We will be receiving a proclamation from the county commissioners on May 2nd, and we'll be recognizing all and showing appreciation for all of our frontline workers that week. Trails Day is our third annual event that we will have at Waterfront Park in partnership with the City of Palm Coast, and that is April 25th from 11 to 1. So that is an opportunity that we do outreach to the community and tell them who we are and what we do. We give our brochures and materials. And also, we have participated in, when we were talking about more outreach with residents. We started working with a citizen-led group who is doing a new resident expo a couple times a year in the spring and fall, and there's a couple hundred people that go to that. So we have been participating in that. Also, I've done just this year alone, since January, 4 local speaking engagements to those local organizations to tell them about tourism. And I always ask, who here did not know we had a tourism department in the county? Usually it's 50-50. So our work is never done. And for our July meeting, like I said, David will be coming back to show you the final plan. And also we'll be having our budget. We are so far just projecting still conservatively with our revenues at flat at 4.3 million. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, we'll go out for public outreach. Any final comments? If not, I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Anybody wanted to share anything? Mr. Lugerai.
April, been down a little bit. January was great for the restaurant. February, a little bit down, and a little bit flat on March. So trends seem to be okay. When the weather's great, we're doing great. When it's not so great, then we're not doing so well. I personally have launched the Faith and Freedom Academy. It's not a full-blown school. It's a lot of it's in the pilot phase right now. It's a scholarship fund, and we're basically investing in those people. We're investing in the coaches, mentors, and kids that are athletic, that are trying a different form of schooling. I was forced out of our local schools last year, and I started navigating down this path, and I would just say that it's one of the best things that's ever happened to us. My kids are thriving, and now I'm trying to find more like-minded families and kids that want to join the initiative. And over the last, I've been talking about this for years, that we need some kind of sports academy in our area. And it's something that's very passionate about. And all I'm trying to do is bring some people together that are like-minded to really enhance what we have here so far. Sports are such a big thing in our Flagler County. You got Mad Dogs that's blowing up, and now Sporting Palm Coast and Inter-United between soccer. Baseball and wrestling has always been wonderful here. We just have such a massive opportunity, but trying to lay the infrastructure, and especially the biggest thing I'm going for right now is trying to find some place to put an indoor facility. Since it rains over 130, 40 days out of the year, we seem to have a big issue with indoor space. And all of the different organizations I've been talking to, especially even the sheriff, I mean, every single indoor facility is being used, and volleyball is so big. I didn't even realize how big volleyball was, but we have a severe lack of indoor recreation space. And I know that by the time we wait for the westward expansion, it's just going to be, could be 3 to 5 years away. And I'm actively searching and looking for partners and people that want to continue this initiative. So publicly, I just launched a website, faithandfreedomacademy.org, and it definitely spells out things that we're looking for. And right now, I'm just looking for references. So if you know the best coaches, teachers, or families that are looking for alternative education, then come talk to me.
A quick question. Do you have the launches been beneficial to business since you're right on the beach? Have you noticed an uptick when they schedule launches at a...
Absolutely, especially the Artemis launch, that was the most significant. We always see the SpaceX stuff and here or there, but Artemis was definitely, you saw the whole beach packed from Flagler. Even our Orma location was packed for,
that was
for
a
hours.
lot crazy.
More launches, the better.
All right, very good. Commissioner Cooley.
The only thing I have from City of Flagler Beach is the pier is currently on track ahead of schedule. That's all I got.
All right.
For now.
Thank you. For now.
The only thing I have is, well, a shout out for Tunnel to Towers. It's this Saturday morning. But also kind of save the date, July 17th will be Daytona Tortugas City Night for the city of Palm Coast and Flagler County. So make sure you mark your calendars, July 17th. I'll mention it again during the June meeting, but it's going to be really cool. And if you go to our website, I think we're already promoting it.
Thank you. Ms. Walker?
I don't have any.
Ms. Baker?
No, sir, good, thank you.
Ms. Robinson?
So I just want to say that, like I touched on earlier, so the first quarter and half of this month has been excellent as far as occupancy. Everybody's here, everybody's back, it's crowded everywhere, but they are not spending. The ADR is down $10 to $15 what they spent. So that's why the tax collected is flat, because they're not spending what they spent, but they're all here. So it's exciting that they're here because they still get the opportunity, new people to see the county. And, you know, a lot of times they're here for these different activities, and it's the first time that they've ever seen Flagler Beach or Palm Coast. So we did make it our point to make sure, because we had a lot of first-time people in the first quarter, that we sent them all to the beach. So that's where they went. They went to the beach to eat. We try to help everybody else out because we hadn't had that volume of people. We didn't since 24. So we were trying to attempt to start our soft renovation, but the people won't get out. So we're still in that process. We'll be doing some things that you can't really see, but we're trying to get them done. We have to wait, of course, for these political things to happen where we can get our supplies through the strait or whatever is going on with that. And then we should still be done on schedule, even though it's delayed with a little bit of things, by the end of the year with the full soft renovation, so the hotel will look different. But yeah, and then I had a question about this magazine. I get this email about Flagler in Review. Are we included in that when we have these meetings? Because we happen on a week. Like there's a Flagler in Review that comes from Heidi.
That's administration's newsletter, so they highlight whatever topics that they
have.
choose. Mhm.
Okay, and then the second question I had was, many, many moons ago, when I lived in Jacksonville, when I first moved to Jacksonville, I had a welcome to Duval County thing that came from the county and told me everybody's business, and it was just a little letter and it said, welcome to the county. Is that something, because we have a lot of homeowners that come through and they stay one time and they buy a house, is it something that they get here from us to say, welcome to Flagler County, and get introduced to all the things that we have here? Is it something that we have?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not to my knowledge. I know that Expo, I think that was a need that was identified, and that's why the city had like a Citizens Academy. So those folks kind of banded together and said, hey, we need to let people know about all the services and organizations that are here and all the information. So those expos are the ones that are held twice a year for new residents. So they may have that access to new residents, but to my knowledge, not the county.
Okay, because it's just something to bridge the gap between us and them. You know, it was something. I know it's a bigger county. It's Duval. I don't know how they found out all our business, but they definitely, we got a welcome to Duval County letter in like 2 weeks of us signing a lease, not even buying a house. So it was just a thought in my brain. But anyway, see y'all in July.
Thank you. Joe?
I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and I think this is a very exciting committee for Flagler County. So I appreciate you guys in proving me to be on this board, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. They're not always 3 hours, so you can rest assured you can. They typically go pretty much quicker than today, but we knew that we were going to have a lengthy discussion today. The only thing I've got is just want to help spread the word on our Celebrate Trails Day. I'll definitely be back out. I think Lucy and I on our e-bikes come out and visit and say a few words, but getting the word out there, and we have new trails maps, right? Our new spots, all of our trailheads, and which is a great asset. So I'm sure we'll be sharing those too. But that's all I got for today. Anything else from staff? You're all All good? Okay. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.